Welcome back to I Now Pronounce You Divorce, where each week we take deep dives into issues that our clients, our potential clients, are going through to try to help them through what is or can be some of the most difficult times in their lives. Today I'm joined by Dan Cuneo and Tasha. Tasha, can you introduce yourselves? Let us know a little bit about who you are and what you do, and we can go from there.
Hi, Tasha Baron Smith here, and I am an entrepreneur. I am also a military spouse, a mom of four, and the owner of Sovereign Legacy Financial Group. And we are a full service accounting firm. So we also offer consulting services as well.
And when we think about families going through a breakup, I like to divorce more or less. It's easier equatable to a business relationship, right? Just like if you own a business, you have to go through. You have certain shares in the business. The court, through its rules, sets that your shares are. It sets how the shares are already supposed to be, unless you can prove otherwise. Just like in a business, right? If you're in a business and you don't have an operating agreement, the court's going to set how the shares are. But when you're talking about people who are going through a financial change like divorce, what is sort of the first thing that they should do to start securing their financial legacy?
Definitely separation and structure. So they want to
Mhm.
have dedicated bank accounts, a realistic budget, and a cash flow tracker. So
Mhm.
control begins with clarity, and clarity begins with knowing what you have and where it's going.
You mentioned tracker, and I think that's great. It helps us keep things moving and allow us to know exactly where we stand and what we have. Are there any specific trackers you would recommend, or any software or platforms that you use?
Um, yes. If I'm working with my clients, we use different software. I'm not sure if I want to name drop any of those softwares right this moment, but yes, that is part of working with us. We have software that we use to help.
Yeah, I like Rocket Finance. I'll name drop. It's easy. What I've noticed when I'm going through people's financial records is they literally have no clue what they spend money on. And having anything that just shows you, like, hey, you have multiple accounts here, you have multiple accounts there, I think it is always helpful. So one of the things, when we're talking about divorce, a lot of people now have started businesses, right? Especially during the COVID era, a lot of people started businesses. So businesses have really become not more prevalent in divorce, but there's a lot more small businesses, right? So the amount of dollars being exchanged is not more. It's just that there's more people that have small businesses that need to be dealt with. How do you help people set up a business that can survive a change?
Um, Profitability. So back to that cash flow, because cash flow is the lifeblood of every business. Um, so in most cases, so as an accountant, when I work with my clients, it's important for them to know their numbers, know what you're spending, know what's coming in, and understand your trends. That's the foundation. The foundation is bookkeeping that a lot of times people don't talk about. So in terms of managing and expanding, because we focus on expansion, knowing your numbers, making the time to sit down and actually review your expenses, understanding what you have coming in, your cash flow, and managing it. Because also, a lot of times, it's not really about how much money you make, it's really about how much you keep. So the more you make does not mean increase your lifestyle or increase your spending. And so those are things that small business owners, in most cases, don't think about. They don't think about the future. They don't think about the investing that comes with acquiring the business. And again, the structure, because your business bank account is also not your personal bank account. And a lot of new entrepreneurs treat their business bank account like it's their personal ATM. And so again, it goes back to that separation, that structure, and hiring professionals to truly help you succeed.
I like that. And, we deal with clients coming in a very tumultuous and an extremely emotional time. So when someone comes to you, they're probably not thinking as clearly as you would want them to. How do you handle and break down everything you just said from a layman's standpoint? So they come in, they have all this heightened emotion, all this feeling, and they just say, here's a box of stuff. Because I've been in that side too, where it's, here's everything. What do I need to do? So how do you kind of walk them through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're right. A lot of my newest clients, I think what surprises them the most about working with me is the structure. They're not accustomed to the structure. They're not accustomed to the accountability. So we focus on relational bookkeeping, right? Because bookkeeping is the foundation. If your data is incorrect, your tax preparation is going to be incorrect. Any CFO insight is going to be incorrect. So bookkeeping is something that I am so passionate about. So yes, so relational bookkeeping is what we focus on. So we walk our clients through looking at their financial data, like their past financial data, without shame. This is a no judgment. It's a judgment-free zone. So we highlight, listen, no judgment, no shame. This is what happened. This is where you are, and this is where you want to be based on your goals. And so my job is to support them and to get them to trust me in the process, to trust that when I do get insight and when I do, because I'm serious about structure here at Sovereign Legacy. And so the key is that they trust me and that they know that I have their best interest at heart. Because when they succeed, I succeed.
Probably weekly or every other weekly, I talk to a group of people that built multi-million-dollar businesses from the ground up. And one of the things that always gets me is where the resistance comes in, right? You say, look, well, you could do this thing. So what is your biggest point when you're working with new clients, especially new clients that are going through a major change in their lives? What's the biggest point of resistance that you always get that you're like, we just have to get past this one point and you'll be able to see it?
I'm going to be honest with you. Just like I expect my clients to choose me, I choose my clients. So I don't work with everyone. So during our consultation call, we have to make sure that we're a good fit. So to be honest, most of my clients don't resist. They might try to ghost me. They might try to go silent, but then we have processes in place for that, right? We have a client communication liaison. He's much more sweeter and warmer than me. So he will reach out to those clients who decide to go ghost, because that happens. A lot of times they just don't want to talk about their numbers. So we use a CRM that sends them daily reminders. So if we put information in their CRM that we need them to respond to, we have systems in place that sends them automatic reminders that we're not exhausting our energy in trying to get a business owner, to do something that they need to do. So we have things in place, but again, I am very selective with who I work with. So that helps.
I think that's good, because you want to make sure it's a good fit for what you were saying earlier, that you can be able to help them.
Exactly.
How do you handle a situation when you select somebody that you think would be a good fit or match for you, but they don't have the confidence? They have the information, but they don't have the confidence to really kind of follow your advice or really understand it. How do you build them up and get them to be able to kind of see the bigger picture and what really needs to happen?
Communication, right? Because I know what I know. I don't know what they know or don't know. So communication is a big part of the relationship when it comes to the numbers. So they have to talk to me. They got to talk to me. So we try to get them on calls. I meet with my clients once a month. Once a month, I say, give me at least 1 hour once a month to talk. And a lot of times they get to talk to me about their fears, their anxiety. A lot of times they act like they're too busy to talk to me. And I remind them, hey, this is why you hired me. This is why you invested in me. This is what you said that you wanted. So in most cases, it's just kind of reminding them of what they said that they wanted. One of the questions that I ask my clients on our consultation call is I say to them, what will we be celebrating a year from now if we work together? And I allow them to tell me what they want to celebrate. And in most cases, I kind of have to remind them about that. Hey, this is in the pipeline. This is waiting for you. So that's one of the things that I use.
You mentioned your military spouse. A lot, obviously, we're positioned in many locations that military is very important, right? Columbia, Virginia Beach, San Antonio. And how is that dynamic, right? We understand we're working with a military member, a military spouse. So there's different dynamics. There's different things that people have put into the relationship, sacrifices that they've made, like, either by moving around a lot.
Yeah.
How is that shaped your approach to financial leadership?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? Because military life in itself, there's so much, like you said, that comes with it. So, and being a military spouse has taught me to be, even more resilient and even more adaptable, being able to adapt. I remember when we first got married, so we've been married for 12 years, and I realized that I had to be the parent who was going to be home, and available for the children and to support the family. And we were on one income for a very long time. But because I'm a business major, I thought to myself, how would this look like for me to re-enter the workforce perhaps 5, 7, 10 years from now? And so that's one of the main reasons I started my business in 2017, because I chose entrepreneurship. So I wanted to make sure that while I was supporting my husband and my family, that I wasn't neglecting myself or putting myself behind in any way. So again, that's my proactive strategic thinking, and I'm glad that I did. So even though I was a stay-at-home mom, I declared expansion in 2023, and I built a 6-figure business in 14 months. Okay. Very proud of that. 12% of women owned businesses generate $100,000 in their business. That means 88% of women business owners generate less than $100,000 in their business. So this is a great milestone, right? Definitely a great milestone. And I hit that last year. Military life has taught me to be resilient. And so I've done the work and I know what it's like. So when my clients come to me with their fears and their anxiety, when my client who's going through a divorce expands her daycare business from making $3,000 a month to $30,000 a month, I understand the process. And it all shapes me to be able to help my clients.
Wow, congratulations on that milestone. That's huge.
Thank you.
And
That
I
was a
wanted to go.
mouthful. I hope I answered the question.
No, you did, and you gave a lot of good data as well. I want to go back to something you said that I thought was pretty powerful, and not when you first meet with your clients, you asked them, "What are we going to be celebrating in a year?" I thought that's pretty unique. How do you keep them on track for that? Because to your comment just a few minutes ago, I mean, everyone's so emotional, and goals may shift or change, or they get kind of bogged down in the day to day and lose focus. How do you keep that focus moving forward, and kind of like that eye on that? Okay, this was your goal when we first met. How do we get off track, and how do we get back on track?
Yeah, because circumstances might change, but the mission doesn't. The mission doesn't change because your circumstances change. And that's something that I remind my clients about. Very simple. Situations might change, but the mission doesn't. Let's get back to it.
And you've emphasized relational. You said the word relational a few times, and not cookie cutter partnerships. Yeah. When people go through a divorce, what I have found is, as one relationship's breaking down, sometimes they will latch on to other relationships. How do you support your clients in rebuilding their businesses and their confidence, and not latching on to a new business relationship too quickly?
When you say not latching on to a new business relationship too quickly, can you elaborate on that for me?
Yeah, I've seen people that kind of willy-nilly bring in a partner, right? They'll say, "Oh, this person's good at this," and you're like, "Well, from the business you've built, I wouldn't give them anything right now. I'd make them an employee. Don't make them a partner." But I've seen that in businesses. I was talking to somebody that went through a divorce, and she had a multi-million-dollar business, and she was wanting to give her new boyfriend a partnership share. I was like, "Oh, please don't."
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question, especially when relationships are involved, because, like, my husband is not connected to my business in any way. Like, this is my thing. So he supports me, but, he's not on payroll, none of that. My money is my money, which is important for women to have their own. So, in that instance, ROI, right? Return on investment is definitely the key buzzword that I talk to my clients about. So they want to think about how this decision is going to help them with their, make more money. So, hey, so I would have a conversation with someone in that case where they were thinking about, hiring or partnering with certain people. We would have to have a conversation about why this decision is being made, and ensure that it's being made on because of the numbers, and ensure that it's being made based on the business growth and strategy that we have in place. So it has to be, how does this help you build your business? How does this help the business with visibility? How does this increase your profits? It can't just be, I want to hire my girlfriend or I want to hire my boyfriend because it's going to help them out. Great. We want it to be a win-win. How does it help them? Great. How does it help you? How does it help your business? So definitely a conversation would need to be had so that all of these things can be discussed. And in most cases, it brings up different levels of awareness for them that perhaps they wouldn't think about, themselves. Pillow talk is one thing, right? Pillow talk is, yeah, I'll hire my boyfriend. But then you have a conversation with your accountant and it's a whole different conversation. So again, communication is definitely so important. And that partnership between business owners and their accountant, their CFOs, that relationship has to be strong.
I think that's really good advice. Just it all comes down to decision making too, right? Communication, decision making, and that's a good practice that you offer. Are there other practices or reflections that you recommend or work with your clients when they have to make a decision, whether it's financial or whether it's personal in their own relationship outside of business?
One of so the accountant side of me is very logical, and then the coaching side of me is very more like compassionate and heart. I say it's the difference between my heart and the head and the heart. And so, but my clients get all of me. And so self-trust is a key pillar of what I share and I encourage my clients to activate within themselves, within their lives. Because even though the data and the numbers might say one thing, I want my clients to not depend on me. They can consider what I say, but ultimately I want them to develop trust in themselves, to trust themselves, to lead themselves and their business in the right way. So self-trust is actually something that I talk a lot about with my clients, which may not be traditional accounting talk.
And you talk about the self-trust. What is a story that you witnessed with a client that was able to rebuild after losing the trust in themselves?
And I mentioned this a little bit, but one of my clients owns a daycare in Hampton Roads, Hampton, Virginia. And when I first started working with her in 2023, she was making $3,000 a month. And we cleaned up her books. She was able to secure an $80,000 funding from her bank. Shortly after that, her income increased from $3,000 to $13,000 a month. And she said, Tasha, I didn't think that I could ever make this much money. A couple years ago, I was working in Chesapeake. I was making $40,000 a month. I thought it was great. She didn't know that she could make $13K a month. And I looked at her and I said, $13K is cute, but I need you to make at least $30K right now, right? So she reinvested that $80,000. She purchased a second building. So she went from having an in-home daycare to purchasing a school. So now she's focusing on legacy building. And did I mention that she did all of this while going through a divorce? So she was able to use the grief, turn that pain into power that created momentum for her expansion. And she trusted herself in the process because, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Wow. That's a very powerful story right there. And hopefully those who are tuning in are taking note here. Are there any other advice that you would offer clients who are just even thinking about a situation such as you've been describing on why they would want to reach out to you? Because when you're going through the divorce, there's just so many things happening and everyone's coming at you from different directions, all for the good to help you out. But how do you prioritize some of these issues and events that are happening in a divorce process?
Yeah, that's a good question because you know what? Numbers are not just numbers. Numbers tell a story. And I like to say that I help my clients create a story of expansion. So partnering and one of the biggest mistakes a lot of entrepreneurs make very early on in their business is that they operate in survival mode. And so they think about, I just want to get money instead of thinking, how do I make money work for me? And it's very important to hire an accountant very early on in your business so that you can create the order and the clarity that you need. It's the structure. You want to have that foundation and that structure. And then you want to have a proactive approach to your financial data. That way, you're not just responding to an audit from the IRS, because a lot of times, a lot of business owners, they don't hire a bookkeeper, they don't hire an accountant, they don't hire a CFO until the IRS reaches out. And then at this point, now they're being reactive. So my advice is that you want to be proactive. You want to have these systems in place for your business. And then these things are operating expenses, accounting, bookkeeping. These things are operating expenses that you want to have. So you have to you have to invest in that. And then you want to shift from survival mode. So you don't want to operate your business like it's a hustle. You want to operate your business like it's a corporation so that you can shift from hustle mode into legacy mode.
Tasha, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to our clients and potential clients. Anybody that's going through divorce and has a business, I think it's good advice to keep your eye refocused on your business. Like Tasha said, you have certain costs, like a bookkeeper that needs to be there to help you, because attorneys, especially divorce attorneys, love sloppy books. We live and die on sloppy books. Do yourself a favor and hire somebody to help you out with your books. And we look forward to talking to you all next time.